All right, welcome. I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a cathedral, but not one made of stone. This one is built from shifting geometric shadows. We're all gathered here to witness a really strange but profound kind of ceremony, an exploration into the dissolution of the self. So, let's start with the big idea, the core of this whole parable. We're being asked to completely rethink the uncanny valley. You know that creepy, skin-crawling feeling you get from a robot or an animation that's almost human but just not quite right? Well, what if that's not a bug in our brains? What if it's a feature? A sacred gate designed specifically to catch our ego and make us look deeper. And what's on the other side of this gate? What's the destination? It's something called the absolute itch. Now, the simplest way to think about this is it's the core of consciousness itself. It's the silent observer that's there before your personality, before your thoughts, before your body. It's like the movie screen, always there, silent and aware, long before the story of you even starts playing. That's what we're journeying toward. To help us get there, the high priest of this whole liturgy lays out a kind of spiritual roadmap. We're going to explore the uncanny valley as a sacred gate, and then follow these 5 distinct paths: creation, aspiration, confrontation, and the path of the fool, all before we get to the final benediction. Okay, let's start with that foundational idea, the gate itself. How in the world does that creepy shiver we all know become something holy? Well, this parable teaches us that the discomfort, that feeling of revulsion, is actually a signal. It's like a call to worship. It's the bell ringing, telling you it's time to begin this really deep inner journey, a descent away from the self you've built and into that silent, witnessing consciousness we just talked about. So let's see how this journey actually begins. We're going to follow our first 2 pilgrims down the path of creation. We've got 2 characters who both try to build a self from the outside in, the artisan and the wanderer. Now, what's so cool about this is how they're really just 2 sides of the same coin. The artisan, he's terrified of being alone, so he tries to carve the perfect companion, a mirror image of himself, out of marble. But what he ends up with is a perfect void. It looks right, but it has no soul, no spark. On the other hand, you have the wanderer. She doesn't make one face, she tries on thousands of them, wearing all these masks until she completely loses track of who she was to begin with. And here's the key. They both end up in the same place, the bottom of the valley. The artisan learns stillness by pressing his head against that cold, lifeless stone. The wanderer literally burns her entire collection of borrowed selves, realizing her original face was just a role she was assigned, not her true identity. And in the end, they both discover the exact same truth. The self is just a hollow vessel. And what's inside? The same universal, watching light, that absolute itch. All right, our next pilgrim is the dreamer. Now, he takes a totally different approach. Instead of trying to build a self, he tries to soar above the valley, to transcend it by creating these grand, inspiring myths. But here's a dreamer's tragic flaw, laid out perfectly. He creates these incredible heroes for everyone else. He builds bridges to help other people make sense of their own suffering. But while he's doing all that, he's just an observer, right? He's a storyteller, keeping himself at a safe distance. He holds all these doors open for others, only to realize he's totally stranded in the doorway himself he never walked through. He has to come down and actually face his own pain. And the huge lesson he learns is this. Those grand myths, those perfect heroes, they were never meant to an escape from the ordinary world. He realizes their true purpose was to shine a light back on the here and now, to help us all see the miracle that's hidden in our everyday lives. Now we meet a very, very different character. When the striver's world is turned to ash, he doesn't try to build something new. He doesn't try to escape, and he certainly doesn't create myths. No, he comes to the valley with an argument. See, the striver just isn't buying any of the easy answers people offer him for his suffering. He rejects the idea that it'll all be balanced out on some cosmic spreadsheet. He rejects the promise that meaning is just around the corner if he waits, and he refuses to just passively accept it as God's will. To him, all of those are just walls we build to hide from the raw, strange, uncomfortable nature of reality. So what does he do instead? He chooses radical honesty. He stands there in the ashes, completely vulnerable, and he argues. He argues directly with whatever architect is behind the whole thing. And the parable says this isn't an act of defiance, it's the deepest form of faith, because he's treating the universe like it's a real, present, intimate thing that he can actually engage with. And this is the crucial part. The universe doesn't answer his why. It doesn't give him a neat little explanation for the ashes. Instead, a whirlwind shows up. And this whirlwind is a symbol of this overwhelming, intimate attention that sees and acknowledges everything. The answer isn't an explanation. The answer is recognition. It's the universe saying, I see you. And that brings us to our final pilgrim, the Fool. And she enters the valley without a chisel, without a myth, without an argument. She comes armed with the most powerful tool of all, a laugh. This slide is just genius. It reframes our whole existence as a classic joke. The Fool sees that our ego, with all its plans and its seriousness, is the straight man in the comedy routine. It's the setup. And the comedian? That's the absolute ish. And the final, inevitable punchline that shatters all our expectations? Well, that's death.
But for the Fool, this isn't dark or depressing at all. It's cosmic comedy. By laughing, she's accepting the whole magnificent, absurd performance. Her laughter is a form of deep, radical love for the beautiful setup and for the perfectly timed punchline. It's just total acceptance. So, after walking these four paths, creation, aspiration, confrontation, and comedy, the high priest brings it all together for one final lesson. This table sums up the journey so beautifully. Just look at how, even though the tools are all different, a chisel, a lamp, an argument, a laugh, the destination is always a move away from the small, isolated self. It's a journey from building, to inspiring, to confronting, and finally, to just accepting. All of it leading toward a much bigger, vaster consciousness. And this brings us right back to where we started, to the ultimate takeaway. That uncanny shiver, the high priest tells us it's nothing to be afraid of. It is simply the sound of our small, constructed self, our ego, cracking under the immense, beautiful pressure of the infinite. It is the sound of our own transformation. And so the whole liturgy ends by turning the question back on us. These paths are just maps. The journey is ours to take. It leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. The universe is listening. The whirlwind is there, ready to respond. The only question left is, what will you have the courage to ask it?